Hey everyone. So in this last video, we are going to discuss the digestive tract and how it is regulated by both the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system, as well as the different phases of digestion. So first off, if you remember, the parasympathetic nervous system or response through the nervous system is also known as rest and digest. So therefore, it kind of helps us to remember that when the parasympathetic pathway is stimulated, we are going to see rest and digest. So digest is the digestive tract, it's in the name, so therefore it's an increase in the GI or gastrointestinal activity. So in this case, we're going to see our glandular secretions increase. So the various glands that we need to secrete various digestive hormones and enzymes, those are going to increase because we're doing more digestion and more autonomic movements in the GI tract, meaning more of the smooth muscle in our intestines as well as in our stomach that are going to help us to break down our food. We're going to have an increase in those movements because, again, parasympathetic, increase in digestive performance. The sympathetic pathway is going to be fight or flight. So in this case, we're going to see a decrease in the GI pathways. So because of that, it's going to inhibit. So it's going to decrease GI activity. So we're going to have less secretions and less autonomic movements. If you have prolonged stress or too much of a sympathetic response, this can cause some issues with your GI system as a whole. So the pathway and all the hormones, the way they're released, and different movements of the intestines as well as the stomach, all of those regulations can get altered, and people can have some challenges with digestion and also just gastrointestinal problems as a whole. So too much stress is not a good thing. That can lead to a variety of pathologies. Next up, when we're talking about just using the digestive tract in general, there's three phases that we'd like to discuss. The first one, the cephalic phase. The second is gastric phase. And the third one is the intestinal phase. So cephalic, so cephala refers to your head. So with that said, this is all the stuff that's happening in your brain. So we understand this if you think about it logically, right? If you smell food, if you see food, even if you think of food, right? Maybe you start to salivate, you start to get hungry. That's all because of your brain. You're thinking of stuff. Something is influencing your brain to trigger or begin digestion. So we like to think that digestion begins in the mouth. Really, it happens with your eyes, your nose, all of your senses are necessary. So therefore, the cephalic phase has to do with your head. So this is your response to seeing it, smelling it, and so forth. With that said, specifically, the vagus nerve is going to be stimulated and begin the initial secretion of gastric juices to prepare you for eating. So this is your stomach as well as saliva. It's getting you ready to eat. That's phase number one. The second phase is the gastric phase, and this is where there is that distension of the mucosa because food is now entering the body. So now you're eating. Protein's going to start to break down. You're going to stimulate the release of gastrin into your stomach, which is going to increase HCl, hydrochloric acid, which means you're going to have a decrease in pH. So now your body's digesting. It's getting ready. It's breaking down the food. This is the digestion phase. Break down your food. This is the breakdown phase. So food is entering and you're breaking it down, primarily through the stomach. And then lastly, the third phase, this is your intestinal phase. So digestion does continue into the intestines, as we talked about before. So we're going to have intestinal gastrin be released. We're going to have those pancreatic hormones and enzymes being released into the duodenum. And we're going to continue to break down our food, but also we're going to begin primarily to absorb the nutrients. So this is the absorption phase. We're going to finish breaking down the food, but then also absorb. Here are the phases again, so you can see them. This is directly from your textbook. And then the last couple of slides here are providing you with a summary of just some of the major enzymes, most of which we already discussed. A couple maybe we didn't, but you can get the picture. But this is just to fully give you a picture of everything we discussed in this chapter, as well as a small description of where you find them, as well as what they do. And here are the hormones that we discussed in this chapter as well. And then more specifically, what's being absorbed through the intestines and how they're being absorbed after they're broken down by the hormones and enzymes. Here's a little bit of information on different exams that we can use to diagnose different pathologies of the intestinal tract. If you have any questions on anything we discussed in this chapter or any of these additional slides, please just let me know. We can talk about them anytime. So write down any notes you have, any questions you have, and come to lab and we can discuss them. All right, we're moving on to chapter 19.